beautiful friends, and welcome to Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabi, and this is the start of my podcast. I have a YouTube channel where I normally post videos regarding mental health, mental wellness, and my experience with it, and I just provide a lot of guidance and tools, but my videos were getting a little too long. So for many of you, you may not know who I am. You may not know why Beautifully Broken, why am I doing this? Well, let me give you a quick rundown. So about a year ago, I went to a place called Onsite in Tennessee, and I decided to take my mental health and my depression into my own hands and get some help. There was a moment in my life where I had just hit rock bottom, and I woke up going, you know what, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to get help. Because I'm sure that those of you who struggle with your mental health, there have been many times in your life where you feel like your emotions and your mental illness just takes complete control over you. And you feel like you have no control or any sort of semblance of how you can make yourself feel better. I'm not against any sort of necessity that you need in order to help yourself get through some tough times, but for me, it was always just a Band-Aid. I struggled with depression from the age of 13 to now. I'm 29. My family used to comprehend my depression as something I'd go through every once in a while, or if something terrible happened in my life, that would be a reason why that would happen. And then it started getting to a point where I'd be depressed for days, and my family would just think either it was PMS or mood swings or thinking negatively. And last year was a really big wake-up call for them. I hit my lowest low, and my family just kind of helped pick me up and said, okay, this is real, we need to get you some help. So I'm here to help other people realize that you don't need to wait till that point to get help. You don't need to wait for everything to hit rock bottom. You just can't see the light anymore in order to get help. You can get help no matter what. There's no such thing as your mental illness or your depression being too much. On another note, your depression and your anxiety doesn't need to hit an extreme in order for you to go get help. You should go get help no matter what. So, in my experience, what I went through was I decided to go get help. I went to this place called Onsite in Nashville, Tennessee. Beautiful place. Absolutely beautiful place. I definitely recommend anyone checking them out. I always link Onsite's information everywhere, on my YouTube channel, my blog, my Instagram, just because that place legitimately saved my life. And when I had looked into it, they have many different programs, and I decided to take the one called the Trauma Healing Retreat. To be honest, I didn't know if I qualified for that, I minimized a lot of my traumatic experiences throughout my life, and in doing that, I ended up making my depression and anxiety even worse. I always thought that someone else had it worse and that I didn't deserve to feel the way that I did. And if you're thinking that and you're feeling that right now, I want you to know that pain is pain. Everyone goes through pain in life. Everyone goes through traumatic experiences in life, and it is never okay to compare. It's never okay to minimize your own pain, your own experiences, just because you think that someone else has it worse. And I definitely had that moment when I was there at Onsite. Trust me, I did. I was sitting in a room full of 6 strangers going over my trauma timeline, and legitimately going over my trauma timeline, from the age of 5 to 29, 28, the last year I was 28. And when I was drawing these little stick figures, because that's what they had us do, they had us kind of visually draw out these traumatic experiences. And honestly, some of those things you can't really draw, but you do the best that you can. But in doing that, it kind of takes it out of your brain and makes it real. Because as human beings, we have a tendency to take a traumatic experience that we have had and kind of paint it in a new light just so that we can deal with it. Because if you really saw it for what it was and how traumatic it was, it could ruin you, especially if you're not in the right environment, and you don't know how to deal with your emotions or feel them. It can really mess you up. So I did this whole trauma timeline, and I was sitting there going through my story, and the people in that room, who to this day are some of the closest people to me, and quite honestly that I feel understand me the best, looked at me, and they had tears in their eyes, and they just felt they felt the pain for me. I wouldn't say they felt sorry for me, because it's not about that. They just knew that what I had been through was rough. And the messed up part is, in my head, after I had gone through that timeline, I sat there going, this is silly. Like, there were people in that room that had been through much worse, and I was comparing myself to that. I was telling myself that I didn't deserve to be there. And that's what I learned when I was there, is that that's not true. So no matter what you have been through in your life, I want you to know that your pain is valid, your trauma is valid. It could be something so small. I remember dating this guy, and I had asked him at one point, like, if anything traumatic happened in his life, and he kept telling me, no, like, I had a great childhood, nothing ever happened to me, like, you know, I grew up and, like, I'm fine, and this and that. And I'm going, okay, nothing bad has ever happened to you? And then one day, he just very casually told me this really crazy story. And I was sitting there going, okay, you don't think that that's a bad, like, that's a thing, dude. Like, it's just crazy how we as human beings try to minimize our experiences. We try to minimize our pain. We try to minimize our mental health. That's why for so long, mental health and mental illness was overlooked, because everyone just put a Band-Aid over it. Or we were always told, hey, just rub some dirt on it, get back up, boss up, and move on with your life. But you know what? Like, you gotta feel that pain. You gotta feel that emotion. You need to get through it. So please don't listen to anyone who tells you, and anyone who tells you that your experience isn't that bad compared to X, Y, and Z, or you'll be okay, you'll get through it, it's not that bad. Please don't listen to people like that. I urge you not to. They're minimizing your pain and your experiences, because that is what was done to them. So this podcast, I went on a tangent. So this podcast for me is taking a very different approach with mental health and mental illness. And it's something that not a lot of people do. And I want to show you guys that you can heal your mental health and your mental illness. You can't cure it, but you can heal it to a point where when you have some of those down days or those mental health days that just really take a toll on you, you have a better understanding and perspective of why you feel what you feel and where it's coming from. Because as soon as you know why something is happening or where it's being triggered in your life, and it's kind of like meditation, you know, like when you meditate, you see these thoughts coming through your head, but you're not supposed to hold on to them and overanalyze them and stick in it. You're supposed to just kind of let it pass through your head like a moving car on a street, right? So shout out to Headspace. That's where I got that analogy. So as soon as you know where something comes from, it's easier to understand yourself a little bit better too, because I believe that in understanding your mental health, your mental illness, and healing that, you start to develop a better sense of you, a better sense of who you are and where you come from and why you are the way that you are, and just how beautiful that is. That's why I did Beautifully Broken. People say, well, we aren't broken, it's just your ego. Sure, but here's the thing. Beautifully Broken to me is, yes, I have had moments where I was broken, but in those broken moments is when I rebuilt myself into something beautiful. And I believe that we can do that together. And that is why I do what I do. That is why my approach to mental health, mental illness is different. Because you need to understand the core of everything, of where it came from and why it happened and your responses to it, to rebuild yourself into something beautiful. So a friend of mine gave me a really cool analogy the other day. We were just kind of talking about some stuff that we're both going through, and he told me that this is how he felt. He said, when a caterpillar is in its cocoon, about to become a butterfly, does it know that it's about to become a butterfly? No. It's probably in that cocoon freaking out, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing where it's going to go, not knowing what's going on. And in this quarantine, you could describe it as being in a cocoon. We're all in a cocoon. We're all sitting in our cocoons, not knowing what's going to happen, but we're so alone with our thoughts and who we are and what's going on in our own internal worlds that we're not aware of what's just on the other side. And what's just on the other side is when we break out of these cocoons, we're going to transform into these amazing, beautiful butterflies. And that is why I do what I do, because through every hard time in your life, ask yourself this, through every hard time in your life, have you gotten back up and just become an even more strong, better version of yourself? Probably. And that's what your mental health is like. Just remember that even though you may feel broken, you're beautiful no matter what. And there's nothing wrong with being broken. You want to know why? Because you're not going to be broken for long, and being broken isn't bad. Being broken doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means that we all break a little. We all do. We break a little so that we can rebuild. It's like a bone in your body. When a bone breaks and it heals and it gets stronger by the time it's fully done. So that is what we're going to be. So this is what my podcast is, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you stay tuned for next week. I'm going to upload my podcasts every Wednesday, so be sure to stay tuned. I also have a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and I'll be sure to link those here. So until next week, stay beautiful, my friends.